Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a crucial and honestly pretty urgent wake-up call about market value and where our entire economy is rapidly heading. Look, if you felt a weird shift in the air lately when it comes to your career, your skills, or just how businesses are operating, you are absolutely not imagining things. Just consider this for a second. Recent economic reports are suggesting that nearly half of all current work activities could be automated by technology that literally already exists today. We're talking about basic data processing, routine customer service. Entire departments that used to be the absolute lifeblood of corporate offices are now just being handled by algorithms in the blink of an eye. So today, we're going to unpack some incredibly precise insights that break down exactly what is happening to the value of human work right now. Buckle up, because the rules of the game, they have completely changed.
Okay, let's dive into this, because this idea right here, this is the entire foundation of our discussion today. Everything average is collapsing in price. I just want to let that sink in for a moment. You know, for decades, being average, being reliable, doing exactly what was expected, providing standard output, that was totally enough to build a solid career and a really comfortable life. Think back to the corporate boom in the mid-20th century. If you could reliably crunch numbers in an accounting ledger or draft up a standard legal contract, you were practically guaranteed a lifelong pension. But right now, the market is speaking loud and clear, and it is relentlessly downgrading the value of the middle. Today, an average junior accountant spreadsheet work can just be done by an Excel macro, instantly. We aren't just looking at a slow depreciation here, we are looking at a profound structural collapse of average value. It is actively, aggressively collapsing right before our eyes.
Think about the three words we're looking at here: repeatable, templated, and systemized. I want you to think about your own daily tasks and the outputs you produce. If your work falls neatly into these three categories, its price is falling incredibly fast. Historically, businesses absolutely loved these words, right? They meant scale, efficiency, predictability. But today, they are massive red flags for your personal market value. Let's take a really concrete example: writing standard SEO copy. 10 years ago, you could make a very decent living churning out perfectly formatted, templated blog posts designed just to game search engines. But now, a large language model can generate that exact same templated content in 3 seconds for literally fractions of a penny. If a process can be repeated flawlessly by a script, if a creative asset can just be generated from a template, or if a decision can be mapped out in a rigid system, human beings are simply no longer required to do it. The market fundamentally refuses to pay a premium for what is predictable.
So where exactly is the economic value of all that repeatable, templated, and systemized work actually going? It's trending to absolute zero. And let's be clear, this isn't about a temporary 10% pay cut or just a really tough quarter in the job market. This is an absolute bottoming out. Why? Because when work becomes perfectly systemized, the cost of executing it drops to the raw cost of computing power. And computing power is astonishingly cheap. We're talking about fractions of a cent to execute thousands of complex calculations that would take a human hours, maybe days to complete. When your main competition is a server farm in the desert that doesn't sleep, doesn't need health benefits, and runs on mere cents per hour, the economic value of average human effort applied to a repeatable task isn't just dropping, it is hurtling towards mathematical zero.
Because of all this, we need to be crystal clear about the nature of the shift we're living through. We are witnessing a structural collapse. This is not a cyclical dip. You can kind of think of a cyclical dip like a bad storm. It's rough, it definitely causes damage, but eventually, the clouds clear, the sun comes out, and you rebuild right back to where you were. A structural collapse, on the other hand, that's a permanent shift in the tectonic plates beneath our feet. The actual landscape has changed. This isn't a recession that we're going to bounce back from in a few years and return to the good old days of paying top dollar for average work. The very foundation of what businesses pay for has been permanently altered. The floor has entirely fallen out from underneath standard average output. The architecture of the economy has fundamentally changed, and it's mercilessly clearing out the middle ground.
Now, what's really fascinating here is our reaction to this. We all want to point the finger at artificial intelligence, right? It's the ultimate boogeyman of the moment. But AI didn't actually cause this trend. The drive toward automation and systemization has been happening for decades. What AI did was act as an accelerant. It basically just poured high-octane gasoline on an already burning fire. Think about the manufacturing sector. Car factories were automating assembly line jobs with robotics way back in the 1980s and 90s. The decline of the average physical task was already well in motion. What AI did was take that exact same dynamic and apply it to knowledge work. It took a gradual downward slope of average value and, as this quote brilliantly puts it, it just made the curve vertical. It turned a steady, predictable decline into a sheer cliff edge. AI is simply executing the repeatable and the templated
faster and cheaper than we ever thought possible.
So let's look at the new reality of the market to really build our understanding of where we go from here. Over on the average side, and even the good side, the market just doesn't pay for average anymore. And truthfully, it barely even pays for good. Good is just the new baseline. It gets you a participation trophy and maybe a seat at the table, but it absolutely does not get you the premium. It's just table stakes to get in the room. But look at the alternative, non-standard. This is your ultimate salvation. In a professional setting, being non-standard means bringing a perspective that totally disrupts the usual flow. It means challenging the default assumptions of your industry, or, combining two completely unrelated skills to solve a problem in a way no algorithm could ever predict. The market is aggressively reallocating all of its capital and rewards to this non-standard category. It pays handsomely for what is fundamentally unique.
Which brings us to the ultimate survival mechanism in this new economy. You have to focus entirely on producing the one thing that can't be prompted. Think about how a machine works today. You give it a prompt, and it gives you an average to good output based on historical data. If you ask a machine to generate a generic marketing plan for a new shoe launch, it's going to give you a perfectly fine, deeply average checklist. That is a promptable output. But realizing that your brand needs to completely pivot its entire voice because of a subtle, highly nuanced cultural shift that just happened yesterday, a machine cannot feel that shift. It absolutely cannot be prompted to have empathy or intuition. Your goal, your entire professional strategy moving forward, must generate work that simply cannot be coaxed out of a machine, no matter how incredibly clever the prompt is.
So what actually remains durable? What holds extreme value right now? Well, it essentially comes down to three core pillars. Number one, taste that can't be copied. Taste is highly subjective and deeply human. It's the creative director who knows exactly which shade of blue is going to evoke nostalgia for a very specific generation. You just can't code that. Number two, insight that can't be templated. This means connecting dots in a way literally no one else has. It's the financial analyst who looks at the exact same spreadsheet as everyone else, but realizes a seemingly unrelated supply chain issue in another country is going to severely impact local retail. And number three, thinking that can't be generated. True, original, messy, brilliant human thought. It's the bold, contrarian strategy that looks completely wrong on paper but feels entirely right in practice. This is the non-standard premium. These are the traits that are entirely immune to this structural collapse.
So I want to leave you with a real challenge today. Look back at the work you did this past week. Look at the decisions you made, the emails you wrote, the projects you pushed forward. I want you to ask yourself honestly, is your thinking repeatable, or is it truly non-standard? Because if it's repeatable, its value is trending straight to zero. But if you can cultivate your taste, trust your unique insights, and constantly push for non-standard thinking, the premium the market will pay you is limitless. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Start thinking differently, and I'll see you next time.